This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, it's now 6:30 and I'll call this town council meeting to order. First thing in order will be the invocation, and that's by John Schaefer from the Discovery Church. Good evening, sir.
See you. Well, I want to thank you, Mayor and Town Council, for opening your business for the town of Surfside by asking for God's wisdom, and thank you for having me here tonight. Mayor, real quick, if I could maybe get a selfie with you before I leave with a newspaper, because when I told my wife I was leaving on Valentine's to come to a town council meeting, she had some kind of issue. So we're about let us pray. Heavenly Father, God, we seek your wisdom and your guidance right now, Lord, for all in this room as they conduct the business of this town of Surfside. May you continue to just pour your grace and mercy out on all of us tonight, Lord, as you did when you sent your son Jesus to die for our sins. We thank you tonight for coming to live with us so that one day we could go and live with you. Ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here, take her box candy.
And I take 10.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the next thing I'll ask is if there's any motions relating to the agenda. The next thing on the agenda is the minutes approval.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to defer the minutes approval until the next meeting on February 28th due to some last minute editorial changes.
Second.
Did I have a second on that? Okay, is there any discussion before we vote on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it passed. The next thing is public comments, and these are public comments relating to the agenda. Yes, sir. Step up. Yeah, come on up to the microphone.
And I can make public comment on the reading of the new ordinance, correct?
Yes, you can.
Correct.
Prior to the reading. Okay.
State your name and address, please.
I'm Lanny Kemble. 714 Pine Drive, Surfside. First off, I'm here speaking as a resident and not a member of the parking committee as I resigned yesterday. Okay? So, one of the questions that I have is section 9-16F, which was the 30-day employee decal. The town shall issue 30-day decal for employees of the E-district or other applicable districts that shall entitle the vehicle to park in permit-only parking areas. The charge for said 30-day decal shall be $20 per month and shall expire on the last day of the month issued, regardless of the issuing date. The new ordinance has that completely eliminated. Under what recommendation, who suggested to eliminate that from the ordinance, do we know?
We're not answering any questions.
Anyways, so there's been discussion of an employee parking issue, looking at different lots. So we actually did, so with the opening of the pier, there will be approximately 25 additional employees needing a place to park. This will increase the complaints from the E-district businesses that the town is not business friendly since we're not trying to accommodate their employees. We've had discussion on different lots. The Yopon gravel lot in 2 years generated a total of $16,613. That's 44 days per year. So if you look at a rough breakout of that, because the data that I had did not include October of 2022, that's around 195 per spot. So roughly $25 a month. If you were to revise that part of the ordinance and not eliminate it, it could solve an employee parking issue for the E district. So restrict the lot that it allows and look at the pricing. Thank you. Oh, and there's 2 page 6s in the new ordinance.
Are there any other public comments? All right, moving right along, we'll go into the communications section, and the first thing is the administrator's report by Interim Administrator Clemens.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, happy Valentine's Day to Mayor, Council, and our community that's here with us. Tabitha Mall, I need to give her all the credit. We wanted to do something a little bit special today, being we're all here on Valentine's Day, so you can thank her for the candy that is at your seat, and we appreciate you very much, Tabitha, along with, I don't know if she's posted anything yet, but today she went and got donuts for all of the work sites here in the town of Surfside Beach, and just as an appreciation to say that we do appreciate our employees, and we love them, and we need them. So I appreciate that, Tabitha. Thank you for doing that. Just a real quick peer update. So we did have the peer conference call update that we do every Tuesday, and I'll just hit a couple items from that meeting. As far as the construction update, the framework or the frame of the pier is now complete. Intercoastal Marine completed the largest portion of the work, so they're going to start to do a demobilization plan. They've actually started that. You're going to see one crane stay on the pier because there'll still be some additional work that is needed by that crane. There's really only a couple items that are left as far as the framework are actually on the pier, and that's some railing and some decking in the shade structure at the end of the pier. As far as the buildings, all the roofs are complete. There's only 3 pieces of material that needs to be finished on the buildings, and basically they're just the roof caps. So they're making progress on that, and then you will also see that the buildings were basically closed in. So you'll see plywood and all of that on the buildings at the pier. So the interiors of those buildings have been sealed. We had A&I, or Consensus had A&I Fire Restoration. They came out, did a dehumidification process. So when the buildings are under climate control and drying out of each building should occur. So that was an extra step that they took. The camera system for the pier is something that Chief Hoffman and I have been working on, and actually I'll give Chief Hoffman all the credit here. He has taken the lead on this project, and we've had discussions with some of the contractors along with Collins and Consensus, and we're working through that process now with HTC as far as the design and where all of the cameras and that type of thing will go. So you're going to see there's going to be more progress reports on that I'll make sure that the community is aware of, either me or Chief Hoffman. So the pier is moving along, and it continues to move along. So we're real happy about that. All of us are. Real quickly, I just want to give a shout out to Eric Robinson with Facilities. Did you all know we gave out parking stickers last week? But anyway, we did. And I'll mention Pivot here in just a minute. But, you know, there really was a lot of thought that went into that. You know, it's a tight space. So we worked with Eric, we worked with John Adair, and I think that was a fairly smooth process, as smooth as it could possibly be for the area that we had. I know I went out and gave some bubble gum out to the people that were standing out there. So we appreciate all of their efforts. The final contract with Creech and Associates I signed today. So that is the contract that will start the work for the conceptual master plan for our potential municipal complex here in the town of Surfside Beach. So we're excited about that. So I'll be working with them to come up with the schedule and then, of course, communicate that to council and our community. PB&Z continues to process applications for their current vacancies. There's 3 vacancies. It's permit tech, code enforcement, and building inspection. I talked with Sabrina, and Sabrina keeps me in the loop of what's going on with these vacancies, and she has conducted interviews for all 3 positions. So we are hopeful that we'll get those positions filled very, very quickly, and over the next week or so, you're going to start to see, folks in those positions. So we do ask for a little bit of patience. We are all stepping up. Fire Marshal Keith Williams worked in there all last week. So, we're trying to do what we need to do as employees of the town to help each other as an effective team. So that's where we're at with PB&Z and the vacancies. The other item is a comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan really begins in earnest on Tuesday, the 21st. So next Tuesday. And there'll be a day-long meeting held at the fire station with all of the administrative folks, the department heads here in the town. But the kickoff for our community is that evening on the 21st, which will be here. And I believe that is from 5 to 7 here at the Civic Center. I talked with Sabrina today. She's talked with the contractor that we're hiring. We really need, I know it's been mentioned many times by council, we need our community to come out and help build this 10-year plan. We cannot do it without this community. So that is the kickoff. So if you have some time next Tuesday, please come out and start that conversation with all of us. Public Works, John has been working on our FEMA reimbursement for Hurricane Ian, and we're confident that the town should see a reimbursement of nearly $150,000 reimbursement for our efforts with Hurricane Ian. He also wanted me to mention that the seal coating and the restriping of Huckabee should be done by the end of this week. So he's making progress on all of that. Now I'd like to ask Chief Hoffman to come up and just give a few words about one of his officers.
Thank you, Chief Clemens. I appreciate it. Mayor, council, and citizens, thank you very much for just a minute. I wanted to take a moment to pass some information on to you. I have to admit that we have caught an officer doing something really amazing. I want to make sure we give some credit for that. Officer Bishop, can you come up front, please? He's wearing the mask so you don't see him cry, okay? I want to let the mayor and council and our citizens know that something happened in town back in January. On January 7th, Officer Bishop, Corporal Bishop was on patrol and was doing a very good job of riding around some of our parking lots and checking some of our areas. It was at night. It was a very cold night. He came up upon a vehicle that was backed up in the woods near behind the Pizza Hut. He got out of his vehicle and went to investigate to see what was going on, and he discovered a female asleep in the car. He did some investigation and found out that this female was out of money, out of place to stay, and was in a tight spot. She said she was waiting on her boyfriend to get off of work nearby, and a few minutes later, the boyfriend arrived, and he was able to confirm the difficulties that they were going through. In a very selfless and empathetic and compassionate way, Officer Bishop took the couple across the street to the hotel, pulled out his own credit card, and paid for a hotel room for these folks. So they could have a place to sleep, be warm, and we want to recognize them because a lot of bad things said sometimes about the police, and but we're out there and we're doing amazing things. Sometimes the work we do is tough, and we have to make tough decisions, but sometimes we can do amazing things. We did an amazing thing, and I wanted to take a minute to thank you.
Chief Hoffman, thank you so much for that. Yes, sir. That's the types of things we need to hear more often. So, and I actually have another amazing thing that I'd like to read from something that happened at Town Hall. Allow me to do so. So I received this letter from a gentleman by the name of Joe Campbell. And Mr. Campbell wrote this. He said, "Dear Mr. Clements," he said in his letter, "leaders need to receive good reviews about their staff, and this is why I'm sending you this letter. I've been communicating with Mr. Brian Gray." And Brian, if you don't know Brian, he is the gentleman that it's the first face you see when you walk into town hall, and that is Brian. And it says that I found Mr. Gray to be professional, polite, and a true pleasure to communicate with. He has impressed us with his professionalism and continued command of each and every situation. He also goes on to mention that he is a Air Force veteran. He said, "Mr. Gray listens and responds with empathy. He thinks through each and every situation and provides courageous and courteous feedback and is steadfast in his convictions and confidence. Qualities that any commander and or leader should expect and appreciate. My family and I have been visiting the Surfside Beach or Myrtle Beach area each year for at least a minimum stay of 1 week for the past 40 years. We feel at home in this community and believe the Surfside Beach represents all of the good that has become the Southern hospitality standard. Mr. Gray has helped us with our Veterans Memorial plaque, one for me, one for my son, and one for my dad. He said, we are going to plan our 41st family vacation this year and bring our entire family to the Surfside Beach Veterans Memorial Park to view the plaques that Mr. Gray had been so instrumental in helping us establish." He said, "Thank you, Mr. Clements, for having Mr. Gray part of your team. What a positive reflection this is of your leadership in the town." So that is just another amazing thing that happens every day in the town of Surfside Beach. So I just wanted to read that to let folks know. And Brian is an amazing employee. We are very, very lucky to have Brian. So last thing on the administrator time, and I appreciate this little bit of extra time, is one of the things that I've been working on as the fire chief, really since I became the fire chief a year and a half ago when I did the initial audit, was how do you increase service delivery in a community the size of ours and a one-station department with 6 operational people? How do you do it? It's hard to do. So one of the things that we recognized that we could do with the right people is increase how we respond to incidents with the level of protection that we give this community. So our agency was a basic life support agency, and with a lot of work, with some vision and a lot of work, and you're going to hear how that work got accomplished, we are now an advanced life support agency here in our fire department, which is amazing for a one-station fire department. And I'm going to ask Captain Chauncey Kelly. Chauncey is new to us. Chauncey, this project, when I started this project or started this discussion, because trust me, when I say I, it is not I, it is definitely a team. It started out with Captain Jeff Gore. Captain Jeff Gore has moved on to Horry County. He had some opportunities there to become a captain. He was a volunteer there for years, but I need to give him credit also because he started this along with Deputy Chief Carter. So I'd like to ask Deputy Chief Carter and Captain Kelly just to come up, and Captain Kelly is just going to give you a real quick overview of what this means for you all sitting in these seats.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Interim Administrator, staff, and citizens, good evening. Over the course of the past year, the Surfside Beach Fire Department has been working towards a big milestone in the advancement of our fire department and the services we provide. We have been researching, educating, and outfitting the department to be able to provide the highest level of medical care possible. With the addition of a cardiac monitor, other advanced medical equipment, and some advanced medical guidelines, we've been able to achieve the recognition from the state of South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control of an advanced life support rapid responder agency. What this means is we now are able to provide advanced life support to sick and injured residents and visitors until the ambulance is able to transport them to a hospital for further care. We now will be able to provide life-saving medicine, advanced care in a cardiac arrest, early recognition and treatment of a heart attack. We can provide IVs to seriously injured people. With the national shortage of advanced level providers and an increase in calls for service for many agencies surrounding us, this is a major accomplishment. Many times the ambulance housed in our station or the next closest ALS unit is not readily available. We will be able to make a greater impact on the outcomes in a medical emergency to our citizens and visitors by providing advanced care early. We would like to thank all of you for your support in helping to improve our capabilities and provide the best for our residents and visitors alike. This program will give us the opportunity to fulfill our motto of Be the Difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, I want to thank all of you for the support, citizens, our employees, and all for support. During Chief Clemens' tenure as the administrator, he's put faith and trust in us to make sure we take care of the town and the citizens and achieve all the goals that we have set forth as a team within the Surfside Beach Fire Department. Thank you.
I don't know if y'all realize how proud that makes me. I'm not kidding you. That is a really, really big deal for this town and the people that are going to visit here. It's going to be carried out by the people in these uniforms back here. So, Chauncey, nice job, buddy. So we appreciate it. Mayor, thank you.
Okay, the next thing is pivot parking presentation.
Mayor, council, thank you for having us tonight. We're just going to give a quick update on the upcoming parking season, so everybody is kind of on the same page here.
Uh-oh. There we go.
So this is our executive team. A lot of those you maybe not familiar with besides Tina. She's going to be the one that's given direct oversight for the Surfside Beach location. This is more of the operations team that you'll see on a daily basis. Of course, as Aaron, he's the operations manager here. I'm the manager for the coastal South Carolina. Corinne is, she's responsible for our North Carolina locations. And then Jordan down in the bottom right is the staff accountant. She's going to be handling the day-to-day financials, weekly, as well as the monthlies. This is just about Pivot. We are a regionally southeast-based company comprised of parking veterans with more than 60 years of experience in all the parking verticals. We do like to say that we are experts at the coastal parking. We oversee approximately 7,000 spaces in coastal paid parking areas, with more than 12,000 spaces throughout the Carolinas and Virginia. The closest location we manage to here is North Myrtle Beach, and we're coming up on our second season there. And this is some of the 2023 updates. This year, we are transitioning to an LPR-based enforcement. LPR is license plate recognition. When you register your vehicle for decal, you will not receive a physical decal like you have in years past. It will be done by your license plate. You'll see a vehicle driving around with 2 cameras affixed to it. This is the LPR system. As the vehicle drives through the parking lots and along the streets, it will scan all plates on either side of the road. If your license plate has been added to the resident list, we call it an exempt list or a white list. It will come back with a pay alert to the enforcement officer. If you have paid, it'll come back with a paid alert to the enforcement officer. And then, of course, once it scans those plates against the list of paid or exempt, and it is not there, it will give the officer an alert, and a citation will be issued. As always, full-time, year-round folks will be able to register as many vehicles as they have within their household, as long as the vehicle is registered to their household. As always, again, part-time property owners are entitled to 2 free, with the option to purchase more for $40 a piece. golf carts and low-speed vehicles will still receive a physical decal for the 2023 season. Just like the vehicles, it'll be under your home address and will count against the allotment of decals depending on your residency. And they are to be placed, as always, in the lower left side of the driver portion of the windshield. This is something new this year. It doesn't matter if you are part-time, full-time, or you purchased a non-resident, non-property owner pass. Those will not be honored at the pier parking lot when it reopens in April. So even if you park there and you do have a pass, payment will need to be made. And then, of course, at the 4th Avenue North parking lot, that is still in effect this year as well. Here's getting into that enforcement LPR platform. There is the vehicle there. It will have the 2 cameras affixed to the hood of the vehicle, and it will drive around scanning plates against the payment platforms as well as the exempt list. If the plate is not on one of those lists, the ambassador will receive an alert and a ticket will be issued. This is kind of the enforcement process. The ambassador drives around scanning the license plates. The LPR will tell us if a plate is not on one of those lists. The enforcement ambassador will verify that their plate is not on one of those lists. If it is, they keep going. If not, they will issue a citation and proceed on to the next vehicle. This process, with a ticket issued, 2 to 3 minutes. If not, it's in seconds. There will be a dedicated online citation portal that will be custom to the town of Surfside. It will allow folks to search for a citation by the number or by the license plate of the vehicle. The system will pull up all unpaid citations from the previous 3 years. Those have been scanned over to the new system. They can either pay it or appeal it online from the same system. And appeal decisions will go directly to Aaron, and those will be made within 48 hours of receipt. And they, of course, on the website, all forms of credit cards are accepted, and check payments can be mailed into town hall or paid in person at the parking office. This is just a citation collection process. If it's paid within 30 days, no other action is taken. Not paid within 30 days, it is escalated based on the ordinances. Day 31, the system automatically generates an unpaid citation letter, and it will go out to the address that is on that license plate. And that goes to the SC DMV as well as any out-of-state DMVs. They'll receive the letter. If payment is made, no further action is taken. They receive the letter, no payment is made. A second notice is mailed on the 61st day. And then if no payment is made after that, there will be an escalation as well as far as pursuant to the ordinances as well as the mobilization. These are the signage updates for this year. You'll see all these new signs in each lot. There will be 2 payment options, the Texter Park, Park Mobile. The signs have step-by-step instructions on how to make payment, as well as our phone number to call with any assistance needs, or if you would like to pay by cash, we can set that up for you as well. The location that you are at will be at the bottom of each sign, so we can find you easily and get you taken care of. As I stated, there's 2 payment options. One is Texter Park, one is Park Mobile. Texter Park, there is a unique code to each lot. It'll be SSB and then a number following that. You will text that code to that number. It'll send you back a link. You click on the link and go where you can put in your payment information as well as your license plate. Park Mobile is an app that you download from your phone's app store. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes to set up an account. And then once you do that, you won't have to do anything else again, besides putting how long you want to stay at the particular lot that you're at, as well as the zone number. Surfside Beach will become one of the first operations on the East Coast in a beach environment to go completely equipmentless. We applaud you guys for making this step. It is a huge step into the future, and you guys are being very proactive about it. So we applaud you guys for doing that. That is all I had. Rob, I don't know if I missed anything, or if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a question about the pier parking lot. Council has gone and we voted on this as a recommendation from the parking committee that the pier parking lot be raised from $2 to $3 an hour.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
And also the fact that if the town stickers, right, are not acceptable in the pier parking lot. What has been done to educate the residents to that? Because I've been getting a lot of things that people did not know that.
So when we issue the decals when they come in, we should be conveying that to them, that these stickers are no longer good at the pier parking lot, as well as through email. And the first, I would say 2 or 3 weeks, there'll be a warning period. There'll be a grace period for all those folks that don't, they may not know. And then, you know, if a citizen were to get a ticket and they're adamant that they did not know, then we can work with them on that as well.
Will there be something there at the pier parking lot that a physical signage
Yes, sir.
that says that your town stickers are
Yes,
not
sir.
good in the pier parking
It will
lot?
be on the signage as well. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question, like if somebody comes in and pays to park and they pay for 2 or 3 hours at a time, and they decide that they want to go down to the E district to get a meal, what happens to that parking? Do they have to repay again to park again, or is that 2 or 3 hours good for another parking lot? Since you saying that at the bottom of this page has a number of that parking space that you're supposed to be in, what happens in that deal?
It is currently set up to where you can park in one lot and move to another one. That's just how it's set up. That can be set up in any way you guys choose. If you don't want to make parking good from one lot to the other, we can certainly set that up. The specific codes are basically for the rates, if there's different rates, which at the pier there is, but also for an accounting point of view, we can kind of know what each lot is doing.
Okay.
But we can set it up to where,
No,
currently it
I'm
is.
fine with the,
That's
be
fine.
able to move your vehicle around to other parking lots if you still have time left on your parking.
That is currently how it's.
But you
set up.
can't pay at Yopon $2 an hour and
And
then
then go over to.
and then go over to the pier parking lot.
So we'll be able to tell that on the back end with the plate system. We'll be able to tell it that way. So if they're paid in Yopon and moved to the pier,
Yeah.
we can see where the original session was made from.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for you. The last time you were here, you talked about the low-speed vehicles, license tags on those are like an automobile. Then I heard that they're going to, Mr. Clemens, that they're going to put a decal with them. And I got mine today. I got a decal. Are you still registering the tag? So if I'm parked in a parking lot,
Yes, sir.
you come by with that camera, you're not getting out looking at every low-speed vehicle. You're able to.
Yes, sir. So whenever you got yours today, you had to put your plate number down.
Right, I gave all of it.
Yeah, so we still go ahead and add all those to the system as a backup.
Okay.
But yes, they will still get
Very
the
good,
decals as
very
well.
good. You know, for the beach access,
Yes.
you can't ride in there with the truck.
Mr. Mayor, just one
Yes,
other
sir.
thing to your question, sir. We have had a lot of conversation, especially about the pier. And really just in general from the signage and all of that with the new signage and everything in town with Pivot, being a contractor now. One of the things we've talked about, and we will do a lot of effort, and Tabitha and I really have not had a lot of discussion about this, but we've had a lot of discussion about how we want to make sure we educate the public about parking. So we can specifically look at the pier and really in general, to make sure through social media platforms and all of that, that we're pushing that information out. Because we've had a lot of questions about that also, sir.
And I could make this presentation a PDF and send it to Sherry, and we can put that out there as a link if anybody wants to.
That'd probably be good.
Now, when you gave out the 150 stickers to non-residents, right? Was it made clear to them that by purchasing this $150 parking permit, that it is not good in the pier parking lot?
Yes, we were making that clear to everybody. I believe it was on the paper you filled out as well. But we were making that clear to them verbally. And again, there will be the grace period for that. I think that's good as an education piece.
I do, and I think we've talked about that, having some type of grace period. I will tell you, and Jared is right, from an educational perspective, they tried to do that with the non-residents. But quite honestly, there's lessons learned also from the non-residents. I think that is something that next year, as we continue to grow, that we will even do a better job at in making sure, that folks know the rules and all. That's one of the reasons why I wanted Jared here today, because we're getting ready to start March the 1st. So we're really going to ramp up trying to educate the public on what this parking looks like here for Surfside Beach with this new, with our new contractor, and then no more machines. So that's going to be another challenge that we're going to have to go through to try to educate the public in. And we've had a lot of conversation about that too. That is a huge step that council made, but we know there's going to be some challenges as people go to pay to park and all of that. And I think we're going to be somewhat sensitive to that as we go through that.
Well, the people just don't want to be surprised on the rules.
Yeah.
And I mean, as long as they know the rules in advance, they're going to have to go by the rules.
Right.
To find out that I bought a sticker for $150 so that, we could go down to the pier and go fishing, to find out you can't go to the pier parking lot. That may be disappointing to some. Of course, I'd be happy to give them their money back because there's 20 people that want that sticker if they don't want it.
Hands for sure, yeah.
Mr.
Right.
Mayor, I have another question. At the time we signed the contract with you, you said that you had put in some EV stations, charging stations. Have you looked at that since then and made any arrangements for that?
We have not looked at that with everything going on. It is on our list to kind of scout some locations for that. I know we were looking at the parking lot on Surfside Drive, not Yopon, but the gravel lot. We were looking at that one to put some there.
Okay.
As the season goes on, we'll evaluate that more.
Okay.
And see where those need to be. I think the pier lot would be a good place to put some of those. And of course, that'll be made with your guys' consideration as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the decals you're using now, the square ones, the yellow, the blue. I put it on the golf cart, but it doesn't look to be any kind of anti-theft built into it. What is y'all's approach going to be to people pulling them off one golf cart, sticking it on another golf cart, or taking off somebody's golf cart and putting it on their golf cart?
So each decal has a number.
Right.
Those numbers are registered to that specific golf cart with the South Carolina
Right. Certificate.
G number on there. So there'll be a cross check of all those as well. Once we can type in that decal, the decal, type that in, and it'll actually come back to us what card it should be on, just like a plate number.
I can see that becoming a problem with them. So
Yeah.
that's why I was wanting to make sure that y'all
Yeah,
have some kind of way of booting the vehicle if you find one that's altered or somebody's put it on from one vehicle to another vehicle,
yeah,
and a hefty fine for that, because it's just no sense in it.
well, we'd definitely fine them. It'll just be a $25 fine that is approved by council. But they'll definitely get a fine on there. And then it's not in the ordinance, but we can revoke their decal privileges as well. If that's something that we want to do moving forward. I know other beach communities that we manage, they will actually revoke the decal privileges for that household if that's done. So that's something that we can approach going forward too.
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just one thing to wrap it up, that during your presentation of, the pivot services and so forth, and I think we talked about it the last time, that there was an expectation that at the end of this parking season, once we've gathered all the data of, how much each parking lot is used and, how many days a year are we full, there was an expectation that Pivot would do some kind of evaluation and end up, trying to go to a proactive stance than a reaction stance, is, give an overall town strategy of what would be an optimal parking solution for the town. Is that I assume is still on the radar?
Yes, of
That
course.
we will expect that at the end of this
Yes, ma'am.
parking
At the
season?
end of each year for all of our clients, we do a year-end presentation where we go through all the financials, all the things that we did, all the accomplishments, that kind of thing. And then at the end, we give you things to consider. We'll come to you with 4 or 5 points to say, hey, you guys can consider this. We've looked at the data. and we think this will be good. And then you guys consider that in the off season?
With optimum fees and
Yes, ma'am.
concentrations and so forth.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, the next thing, we'll move into the business section, and the first thing on that is the first reading of ordinance 23-0953, chapter 9.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And before I speak to the reasons for this ordinance change, I do just want to take a minute to thank the parking committee for all of their hard work. And I'm not sure if I saw, well, there's Harry there, Harry Coleman, with all the work that the committee did, also with Pivot, and then the administrative staff, all the department heads, as we reviewed this to present to you for first reading. So this is to amend certain sections of chapter 9, the motor vehicle and traffic of the code of ordinance for the town of Surfside Beach, South Carolina. Council approved changes to the parking program at the January 24th, 2023 council meeting, and such changes in the policy required modifications and amendment to certain provisions in chapter 9. Our desire is to amend certain sections of chapter 9 to incorporate the recommendations of staff and the Pivot parking team in the town's best interest. This ordinance repeals and replaces sections 9-7 to 9-18 in its entirety to ensure compliance with the motions made at the January 24th, 2023 council meeting. And I'll offer this ordinance for first reading.
All right, do I have a motion on that?
I make a motion to approve the chapter 9.
I second.
Okay, and discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, in reading through this, while there are certain portions of these modifications that I'm not in favor of, beyond that, we are making a significant paradigm shift in our parking strategy under this provision. And as such, I think there's a little bit more changes and organizational modifications that are required in this document. It no longer flows properly. There's also, in my anal retentive and obsessive compulsive kind of personality, there's an awful lot of typos, inconsistencies of terminology, a few of those other things that make for sloppy legal documentation. So, but being that, this is really the first vote to actually implement the recommendation. The previous vote is kind of immaterial. Council acts by ordinance or by resolution. So this is the first vote to actually implement and accept the fact that town residents and non-property owners that hold decals will not be allowed to park in the pier parking lot. That, instead of waiting for an overall town strategy on parking fees, we would implement a piecemeal, increase in the pier parking lot of $1. So at this point, I would not support passing first reading of this ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I would just like to mention on the employees, I have nothing against. In fact, I'm strongly in favor of giving town employees a pass to park. But I think if there's a checklist when an employee quits or is discharged, that we should make sure that it's on the list that they get removed, their license plate gets removed from the free parking. I don't think we need to put it in here, but it needs to be addressed, I think.
An employee does leave the town. There is a process that they go through. We can certainly add that to the list.
I just wanted to bring it to the attention.
My question comes when you say that there's some modifications and changes, most of this is just cleaning it up. If between the first reading and the second reading, if it is cleaned up, is that defined as significant changes? Or is it just stuff that needs to be changed? Because if it's stuff that just needs to be changed, we can change that between the first and second reading, unless it's a significant change.
Correct.
So what you're saying needs to be changed, are they significant?
No, it's more cleanup, readability, actually having the flow of information clear and concise, such that anyone that reads this does not have a question on interpretation. You know, we had a former parking committee representative make another statement about not town employee parking, but e-district employee parking. That's not been addressed. We've now brought up another issue about town employee parking. That has not been addressed. So, you know, I think there's another step of vetting out exactly what should and should not be incorporated in this amendment, whether or not you agree with each of the principles being put forward.
Okay, Mr. Drake?
I'm fine with it as far as an aspect. I just want to see it cleaned up. That would be very good to clean it up and make it more organized.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
does this not need to go before a lawyer and let the lawyer go over this instead of, I mean, we can do first reading and still have a lawyer to go over this document and make sure it's flowing right and make sure that it's up to par, up to snuff to what we want.
We can certainly do that, sir. We can have an attorney review it. Our whole thought process with this, certainly, you know, we know with first reading, there's going to be things that when we send this out to council for review, that there's going to be grammar, there could be readability, some flow issues. That's why we do, you know, first review to make sure that we're capturing all that. Then we'll go back and do our due diligence, clean it up. I mean, our intent really was, you know, 9-7 to 918, just those changes because of pivot and because of the peer. And so it did not go to an attorney review. I will tell you the truth on that. But if that's something that council wants me to do, and certainly most ordinances do, that we can do that.
But the second reading on it needs to be done before the parking season starts.
Well, that it's a tight timeline, and that's why we were, you know, we were up against it, you know, to get this done with everything that we had to do with a new parking vendor and all of that. No excuse. It's the reality. And if we need to clean it up and do that, we can certainly do that. And, you know, we can start to clean it up, and I can have an attorney start the review process as we start to clean it up.
And if we go to get it done and it ends up being significant, then we can just delay our first reading until the next one.
We can delay the second reading to
Right.
another one if
Right.
it needs significant changes.
Right.
But
They shouldn't be
First
significant.
I would prefer to go ahead and work on it and get this first reading passed if any way possible.
Okay. Any more discussion? Mr. Stamey?
Yes.
Holder?
Yeah.
Keating?
No,
Cracklaw?
Yes.
Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Kinkin's not here, and I'm yes also. So the first reading did pass. And moving into the next thing is the ATAX recommendation for fiscal year 2022 through 2023 by Director King. Good evening.
This would be money that is left over from last year's ATAX money after we did the audit. We have $376,000 that's left that normally we spend the next year, but we don't have to do that at all. The committee met on the 26th. What we did is we got requests from the departments of the things that they would like to do with this leftover money that has to be spent by June. That is the key here. By June 30th, if you don't spend it, you don't get it. And a lot of these things were things that we wanted to put on the beach for the summer. If you look under police, the signboards, the beach wheelchairs were a big deal, that they wanted to do cameras, more cameras to put in beaches, the command vehicle. The fire department and the police department, this is a combined one. They wanted to do a drone, a jet ski, the Polaris tractor to tow it around, and a jet ski equipment, which is life vests, et cetera, things you need to be on the jet ski. Public Works, we want to do the beach mats, which I think all of you were very in favor of earlier. That would be a good use of this. And I wanted to put up new signs, because the signs down there are starting to look rather weary of children, lost children, and all those other signs at the beach. And then for events, we wanted to put some barricades together for the next part of events that we have. I'll tell you a story that when we went to the Christmas thing this year, my husband and I went around the corner, 2 little children ran in front of us because they came running out of that park. There was nothing to stop them. So I kind of think that's kind of important. We used to have it at town hall, we had a fence all the way around, so they couldn't run out onto 17. And I'm sure we didn't think of it as a little back road, but it's not a back street when you got people, so many people. The salary supplement would just basically to help the events. Then I wanted some money aside for the pier events and the grand opening events. I have no idea what we want to do, but it was just kind of an earmark to set aside. Hopefully we would have a plan by the end of June of what we want to do. And all of these are the recommendations from the committee. You can vote them yes, you can vote them no, or you can change them any way you want. This money has 2 years to be spent, so it doesn't have to be spent right now. You can pick and choose or do whatever you want. This is just a recommendation. It's totally up to all of you. If you have any questions on the details of any of these, we might have to pull Kenny and Chief up here because I'm not too good on the details.
And is this the exact amount that is, needs to be spent? Is 376,500?
So much. I think it's 504 or something like that. That's just the excess.
Mr. Mayor. Diane, if we, like you actually said, can we pick and choose things out of here that we'd like to use the money for and use it for that and keep the money that's left for the next 2 years?
You can do whatever you want. Yeah. No problem with that. It's the only reason we're doing this is to get it spent if we want to spend it by June for the summer season, which is one of the things we usually try to do. Or we need to do it for, there's also going to be a each budget amendment for whatever you do decide. We will have to amend the current year's budget. So we'll come back with a budget amendment with these things and a few other things that you've approved throughout the year that have to be amended for the June 30th budget. So you can do whichever way you want to go.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask the fire department and the police department, do we not already have a jet ski and a 4-wheel drive vehicle to tow that jet ski to the beach and back?
Mr. Mayor, point of order, you need to have a motion on the table before you can have discussion.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the ATEX recommendation by the advisory committee.
I'll second.
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe there's anything here for council to act upon. This is not a resolution of council. This is not an ordinance. This is merely a recommendation being put forward. I think a discussion is appropriate to have a better understanding of what this recommendation may be entailing. But again, we've started this bad habit of coming in and asking Mother May I to review and accept recommendations in violation of our own ordinance that requires council to act by final form resolutions and or ordinances as appropriate.
Mr. Mayor, this is a resolution.
This is a resolution recommended by the ATEX committee signed by Mill Servant. This is not a resolution to be signed by council. So, I think if this is the recommendation from staff of what they are proposing we approve, then it needs to be incorporated into a resolution of council. It needs to specify that, the original anticipated budget for collections in the 2021-2022 fiscal year to be incorporated in the 2022-2023 budget was X dollars. We already allocated Y dollars. We've collected, from the state excess funds of $376,000 that were not in the budget in the first place, and these are additional expenses. And that goes into, as Diana said, this will then come forward for final approval of council as a budget amendment. So, we got to get out of this bad habit of asking Mother May I and directing how staff should incorporate recommendations, because it's up to staff to make the recommendations in final form to council.
Don't you believe that that's something that we should get legal advice on?
Well,
I believe the TERC committee requires that it go to the committee, and then it goes from the committee to be recommended to the council. That is the state law. However you want to do it, it's not by resolution. But we have to report to them every year, everybody who came and asked for money, whether the committee approved it, whether the council. And that's just part of the reporting to TERC, which is the Tourism Expenditure Review Board there, monitors the ag tax for the state. And the form takes, this is just the form we've always done, and I know that's not the right answer, but since the committee has to approve it, it has to go to council, let's say yes or no.
I don't necessarily think we need an attorney review. I think it's what is already existing in our ordinance. I do think there probably needs to be some cleaning up and making sure that we're following our ordinance and what we're supposed to do. It was my understanding, and Diana, as we talk through this, that when we look at the bylaws for the ATAX committee, that requires them to do a resolution. They could have easily said a letter, just do a letter, write it on a napkin. But it specifically says resolution. So we are presenting this to council as a recommendation from the ATAX committee in Mills-Servin on for council to eventually approve or not approve pieces of this or all of this. And after discussion with this tonight, we will go back and we can do a resolution and budget amendment for signatories of all the council members for the money to be allocated to be used. So that is our understanding of that. But I do think, and we've had some discussion about this to make sure that we're doing this correctly. I do think there's been some times that we have, right, wrong, or indifferent, that we just need to clean up some things and fix some things.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments before we vote on this?
Mayor. Chief Clemens, this question to you.
Yes, sir.
This is a recommendation for budget. If we don't sit here and discuss some of these things, how do these people know whether they're going to get them or not? How are you going to come back to us later on? Are you going to go back to these departments and say, write this out? And how is this? Explain to me how it works. If you brought a resolution to me tonight to look over and question, how's it going to work later on if we've already got a resolution here?
It was my intent to have a discussion, to see what council thought about these items that the ATAX committee has recommended for council to approve to purchase. We're not purchasing anything tonight, but to answer your question, sir. So
that's sort of where I'm at. Maybe I don't understand the law correctly. I'm no attorney, don't claim to be one. But you brought a recommendation for these things to be looked at and say, and have a discussion with these people and say, well, maybe this ain't what we need here. And our recommendation is not to do this. But if we can't discuss it amongst these people and tell them what we're spending this money for, it's sort of like we're trying to hide something. And believe me, I'm not trying to hide nothing from these people, none of you. And I prefer to discuss it and get some of these things were great. Some of them maybe not what council wants to do, but, and I'm just lost. I'm lost to where some of us is coming from and where some others are coming from. And I'm maybe agreeing with the mayor, maybe somebody else needs to look at this that has a legal thing and tell us that we can't do this. There's nobody on our council that is a legal person to tell us. The only person we can depend in is Diane to tell us what we have money wise and how we can spend it or not.
I think, again, from the point of discussion, from where we are at right now, we are doing nothing more than taking the recommendation from the ATAX committee and presenting this in the form of a resolution because of their bylaws and how we're supposed to do that in front of council to, in my belief, have a discussion on how we're going to move forward with this for the next meeting. And, Sherry, from a parliamentary perspective, following the rules, the ordinance, we're just having a discussion on how we're going to move forward with this. So then that way we will know for the next meeting what you all are approving for possible purchase. So we can do the proper resolution and budget amendment to, to present to council for approval or not. Approval. So.
Well, we have a motion before us to approve the whole thing. Now, if we tear it down, then every item on this is going to have to be voted on separately.
You have to, excuse me, you have to make a motion to bring something to the table. You can't just, in parliamentary, you can't just start discussing. Somebody has to open the subject to the council. So you make a motion to,
Right, well, we did the motion.
Right.
So the motion's on right now, but now we're talking about critiquing it, each individual thing. And if we did each individual thing, then each individual thing's going to need a motion.
Well, you'd have to do all those amendments, yes.
I think
specify each one.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, I think what Cindy's trying to say was that each department person, Kenny, Chief Clemens, John Adair, and on, would come before us and say why they need the patrol car, why they need the Polaris tractor, that kind of stuff, and tell us from their aspect why they need that. Just not blanketly say, oh, okay, we'll approve it. And I think that's more or less what, with the ordinance, is what they're trying to come across with and get this kind of streamlined a little bit. And do we have a Polaris tractor already? Don't we have one?
Well, that is our intention.
Right.
I mean, our intention is to not just sign this, council will approve all this, which is not what you're doing tonight anyway, because Ms. Keating's right. This is not the right format for us to be able to do that.
Right.
This is not for council.
Needs to come from each department.
And Chief Hoffman and I and all of us would have to come and justify those questions about jet skis and all the other things that we need. This was merely just a recommendation from the ATAX committee.
I mean, all we're
how
doing,
council would spend the money.
all we're doing tonight is approving the resolution by the recommendation of the ATAX committee.
No, we're approving nothing.
You're not approving anything as far as spending the money until there is a resolution that is specifically done for council to sign and appropriate the money and the budget amendments done and all of that. This is merely just a recommendation from ATAX when we submitted our ATAX recommendations through Diana on how we wanted to spend this $376,500. Nothing is getting approved tonight for purchase. It is just a recommendation from the ATAX committee. The approval of the purchase will not happen until, if there's more discussion about this and council has a resolution where it has all of your all's, names where you will sign to spend that money.
Well, it's a budget.
This money. And a
budget amendment ordinance. The two reading of the ordinance.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It's not that I have a problem with the equipment or anything. It's just, do we need that? Maybe there's something else you need more than something else. That's why I was asking that question.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, I agree with what Mr. Drake is saying. there might be something else that we need more so than this. But right now, it's been brought to us as a recommendation, a resolution to look at this and see some of these things. Maybe it ain't the right time to question Kenny or the fire chief, or I know them people, but there's got to be a discussion somewhere along the line to get something to spend this money. She just told us June the 30th, if we want to spend it for this season, we have to spend this money by June the 30th, which is not far down the road.
Well, it sounds to me like we need a workshop on this.
If you're gonna start picking equipment, yeah, but I mean, these.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say that I'm the liaison for the ATAX committee. And that's what a committee is for, is to make recommendations. And then we vote on them. This is the recommendations. We're not really voting on them. We're accepting what they gave us. But I think we do need to discuss it, whether it be a workshop or now. But I do think it should be discussed.
And that from a process standpoint, that is where I'm at in thinking also. When the resolution is done, if this is accepted tonight as the recommendation, at the next meeting, when the resolution is done, for us to have discussion about these items, we will have discussion about these items because you'll have questions before you all sign anything to appropriate the money, to spend the money. This is just the recommendation from the ATAX committee. It is not to spend anything or approve anything tonight, because you're right, sir. I mean, there definitely needs to be more discussion about this. And obviously, we wouldn't be asking for these things if we didn't think we needed them. Right. But there needs to be discussion, certainly from council, and on how we're spending this money.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor. I'm on a subject.
Yes, you've already spoken twice.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, I think the point is that if the recommendations of the committee that have gone to staff, and staff agrees that these are, the valid numbers, this is where we should focus the funds, that's where, Chief Hoffman has identified these items for the police department, Chief Clemens has identified these items, Director Adair, et cetera, that this is then put forward in a budget amendment ordinance that will go through 2 readings. It is at that first reading that these department heads come in front of council to present their case as to why these items are recommended. And at that time in first reading is when we say yay or nay to individual items, or, accept the list altogether. Because that, what would be considered a minor change, if we would take an item or 2 out, would be the modification between first and second reading of the ordinance. And that's where it then becomes public documentation that is part of the agenda, that the public can then read and understand what is in the ordinance and what is intending to be passed and reviewed. That is what the purpose of the ordinance and the resolutions are for. It's part of the FOIA process and the communication process to our residents, to our stakeholders, so that they know what business is coming in front of council, and not that we're going to vote on the same thing 3 and 4 different times. It's still, and it's why our ordinance says business is presented to council in the form of resolutions or ordinances in their final form, such that, it's communicated to our residents so that they clearly understand what business is in front of council.
And Ms. Keating, as I am still learning also, I think we've all been kind of saying the same thing a little bit to what you just said. And I think the hang up is a little bit, and I could be totally wrong with this, is how the bylaws of the ATAX committee wanted us to present this to council based on their rules. I think if we would have presented this to council in just a letter format, that these are the recommendations, and not call it a resolution, I don't know if that would have change things a little bit because we still have to go through that process. I think that's what I was trying to say also, is that is when the discussion, Mr. Stamey, will absolutely happen to justify what me and Chief Hoffman, the two people here that are on, want. Because there has to be, yes, sir.
Well, where's the motion on that?
Well, we already made a motion.
I know, where's it gonna be?
So we have a motion
I
on
know
the
that,
table.
but I know, where's it gonna?
Take a roll call.
To accept the recommendations. It's not saying that that's what you're gonna do. It's just saying, okay, ATAX, we got your recommendations and we accept them. Doesn't mean you're gonna go with it.
I think that needs to be worded in there.
Roll
Right.
call, yeah.
Mr. Stamey?
Mr. Mayor, then I would like to make an amended motion to clearly state what exactly we're voting on.
Yeah.
And that is that the council is voting to acknowledge the resolution presented by the Accommodation Tax Advisory Committee based on their meeting of January 26th of 2023, and not to infer any approval of the allocation of the funds.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that? You want to take the roll call?
Councilman Stamey?
Mr. Mayor, can I have that repeated? If you've got it all, sure you can.
Sure, you want to read it?
Go ahead.
I
Go
didn't
ahead,
know.
Sam.
Best you can, what was?
Want me to do it again?
Yes, go ahead.
She asked for it to be, she asked for the motion to be amended to acknowledge the ATAX recommendations, not to say this is what you're gonna do. I didn't get the second half.
Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, the modified motion is to acknowledge receipt of the recommendations from the Accommodation Tax Committee as a result of their January 26, 2023 meeting, and not to infer any approval or acceptance of the recommendation.
You have that?
That's it, right at this time. Okay,
Councilmember Stamey?
yes.
Councilmember Holder?
Yes.
Councilmember Keating?
Yes.
Councilmember Craiglaw?
Yes.
Councilmember Drake?
Yes.
Mayor Hellier?
Yes. Thank you, Director King. This thing's crazy. All right, the next thing is the Training Certification Compliance Officer by Chief Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Give me just a moment to get this projected on. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, citizens. I presented, excuse me, this request to you in the budget, earlier in the budget year this year. And there was a request made to defer it to mid-year funding. So I'm bringing it to you for mid-year funding. I want to make you aware of something that has happened since we had our budget discussions back in the spring of last year. The South Carolina legislature passed and the governor signed Act 218 as part of some police reform that is passed. It went into effect it was signed in May of 2022 and went into effect January 1st of this year. This is an unfunded mandate that requires all South Carolina law enforcement agencies to alter their policies and training functions in the following areas: use of force in response to resistance. This is in the area of chokeholds and neck restraints, uniform vehicle pursuit standards, officers' duty to intervene, hiring and terminating practices, mandatory and uniform post-basic academy field training, use of body-worn cameras, using no-knock warrant systems and processes for filing and investigating complaints, and early warning system for officer at-risk behavior, also known as an early intervention system. The law pretty much dictated how these policies were going to look in every law enforcement agency in the state. There were some basic standards, and officers were given, or departments were given, the ability to make some changes and customize it to suit their individual departments. However, there were certain standards that had to be in there. So once the legislature passed it and the governor signed it, then the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy went to work to creating the standards and set those out. So in November, Captain Miller and I went to the Criminal Justice Academy and attended a training session to make sure we understood exactly what was going to be required of us by January 1st. So within those 9 individual standards, and I won't bore you with all the details, we had to make a few changes. Fortunately, our department has really good general orders, and we just had to make some changes and some alterations within the policies to meet these standards. So Surfside Beach PD was audited yesterday. We had our first audit from the Criminal Justice Academy. They sent a compliance division person to the police department, and they physically went through all of our policies to make sure they were in compliance. I'm happy to say they were very happy with our policies, and reported that of the 15 other agencies they had been to, our agency and only one other were as squared away as we were. So I give credit to Captain Miller for that. He worked diligently to get those policies together and get them ready. But they told us that in 2024, the police department will expect to be audited with a requirement to provide proofs of compliance. That is documentation as evidence of training and implementation of the 9 critical policies. Similar to the process of accreditation, that means that they'll be coming and they'll be checking to make sure we still have the policies, that we've trained the policies, and that we've implemented these policies. Not only that, they'll be looking for proof. They'll be looking for paperwork, reports, evidence that we're using all of these things the way we're supposed to. If the PD is found to be non-compliant, the Criminal Justice Academy can levy a fine of $1,000 per day per violation for anything that they find when they get here. And if we don't comply and come into immediate compliance, they will literally suspend the entire police department's arrest powers. So this is serious. And I support it. I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad to say that our policies and procedures already far exceeded many of these standards. We just had to make a few adjustments. The complication comes, Mr. Mayor and Council, and to the citizens that are here, is this is another layer of training requirements that is thrown right on top of everything else that we're already doing. And there's a lot of it. Right now, the police lieutenant is responsible for training in these areas. Well, first of all, he supervises the entire Uniform Patrol Operations Division. That's 14 police officers. He's responsible for training. That's pre-academy training, post-academy. He is the field training manager. He's responsible for annual in-service, driving, firearms, taser, defensive tactics, annual policy training, to include the layer of Act 218 requirements on top of that. He's also responsible for the certification and compliance. That's our continuing education credits. That's got to be documented, submitted to the academy. It's got to be monitored. And now we have Act 218 requirements on top of that. For example, in Act 218, we have early intervention. That means that there's 12 to 14 incidents that a police officer could be involved in. Pursuits, use of force, motor vehicle accidents, disciplinary action, anything like that. These are check boxes. And if you hit a certain number of these events in a certain time frame, depending on weighted balance of these things, it has to kick that officer's file to me to initiate a review to make sure that the officer is okay, that there's not something else going on in the background that we have to address. That's a program that requires time, management, software, and other things like that. It's very time consuming. The lieutenant right now is also responsible for quartermaster. That's all of our supplies and equipment, fleet operations, vehicles, beach vehicles, LSVs, our super cool troop carrier that we have next door here too. That's one of them. Thank you very much. Beach patrol operations, including beach services. That's 10 civilian additional people that the lieutenant is responsible for training and monitoring, and making sure that they're out there as good ambassadors to the town. Special events he's responsible for: Christmas parade, golf cart parades, July 4th, bike weeks, Christmas tree lighting. And y'all know y'all love some golf cart parades right now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. They take a lot of people to run those things. It takes a lot of staff to do that. And we like them too. You do a good job. Okay. So the police department has been without a defensive tactics and oleoresin capsicum pepper spray instructor for over 5 years. The Criminal Justice Academy now requires that agencies physically proctor all pre-academy training. That means if we have a new recruit in, someone with a basic instructor certification, there's only 2 of us, me and the lieutenant have that certification, must physically sit with the cadet for 160 hours while they watch online videos.
Oh my goodness.
Because they have to be able to stop the videos, supplement the information with examples. They have to be able to answer questions if the cadet has questions. They have to be given basic defensive tactics instruction. They have to have basic firearms training, and they have to have basic police driving instruction before they go to the academy for the additional 8 weeks. The police department can send cadets to other agencies for pre-academies. They have them. I can send them. We have to wait till they run one, which could be 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 months that they're sitting around here drawing full salary before they can get the training. And that is fertile recruiting ground for other agencies, y'all. And I'm telling you, it has happened. Our officers have been recruited while attending other agencies. And if you think other agencies won't be more than happy to cut y'all a $20,000 check after you've spent $50,000 getting them trained, it's a great return on investment, y'all. Okay? So that can happen as well. The police department's training, excuse me, the question is, what will this officer do? What will this training, certification, and compliance officer, if you approve it, do for the police department? This person will be responsible, will be a fully certified, patrol-capable police officer. They'll be under the police lieutenant's leadership and will plan and implement the department's annual training, lead recruiting efforts to find good qualified police officers and communications officers for the town, assist with onboarding new officers, whether they're new to the profession, in-state or out-state lateral transfers, register new officers for the academy and schedule the training, proctor the cadet process, develop and monitor field training officers, monitor new officer progress through the 12-week FTO process, monitor and implement advanced leadership and development of trainings for staff, and bring pertinent training to the shifts to avoid the all-hands training we have to do right now. This will help reduce some overtime and burnout of our staff having to come in on their days off. Development of staff through advanced training opportunities outside the department. So that's just some of the training pieces that they'll do. This officer could also help us monitor and ensure compliance with all certifications that's required for the academy, monitor and document compliance with the Act 218 requirements. This means that we'll have to do annual training every year on these requirements, and also each new officer that comes in will have to receive this training as well. And they'll maintain the proof files for inspection. They can maintain the department's practices to reduce liability exposure for the town. I've mentioned this before, the Municipal Association sends out an annual risk management assessment that we have to do every year and send back to the Municipal Association. And they actually have 12 critical policies, so they're actually even a little more in depth than this. And we've always scored really well. We just did ours last week. Because of these changes and everything that's happened, we've got some areas for improvement that have been identified. We'll get them done, but again, it's going to require training to get us there. They can also help reduce officer turnover that results from lack of development and training opportunities. There's plenty of research that says one of the reasons officers leave a department is for lack of training and opportunities for development. This generation of police officers is the smartest, most technologically advanced generation that has ever stepped foot and worn a gun and a badge. But they expect a lot from us. They expect to be trained. They expect to have the tools and equipment and training they need to do the job. So if I'm a taxpayer or I'm sitting up here, I'm asking, why right now, Chief? Why now? Why can't we wait till July? Can we just wait till July? I know I know that it's tough. I know resources are limited. The tasks related to training, certification, and compliance have grown significantly over the last 5 years as a result of these demands for police reform, which I strongly support. So allowing this highly important function to remain as one of the many responsibilities of the training lieutenant who has all these other responsibilities places us in the town, the department, each of us open to liability. It creates functional but undertrained police officers in the field, and it decreases officer satisfaction. I've requested this position in the fiscal year 2021, fiscal year 21-22, and fiscal year 22-23. This past year, I got real close, but you asked to defer it to mid-year funding. This position is going to require me to go out in the spring and find a highly skilled and trained police officer who has all of these training certifications. It's going to take time. We're going to have to do a lot of recruiting in other areas to try to find the right person to do this job. A bad training officer who is the first person that our police officers and communications officers deal with can set a really bad example for how we want it to be. So this is a very, very important position. Waiting until July of this year to recruit, train, and install this position would result in a lack of preparation for the training delivered in the fall season. So I know you've heard the old saying, oh, wow, why do we need 20 cops in a 2-square-mile town? I know, and I can defend it all day long. But one reason is, in the summer, let me get you one.
I got it.
Sure.
I just took a cough drop.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll have 30 to 50,000 people in this town this summer, and we won't have enough police officers. But then I get it, in the off season, we have less people. That's why we don't take vacations in the summer. We take our vacations in the off season. That's why we do our training in the off season. If I start in July trying to find this person, because that's when the funding is available, we'll miss that whole fall training season that we've got to have all of this Act 218 and everything going. We need to get this ball rolling now. The person needs to be recruited, hired, and trained. So we're not just going to hire a training person and they just walk in the door and start training our officers. We've got to hire them. They've got to go through a field training program. They've got to get acclimated and learn how to police in Surfside Beach to this community standards. So we want to get that done during the summer season and get that person experienced so they see what the demands are during the summer, so they really know what the expectations are. This position can be funded in the 22-23 budget. The current funds with excess salary funds we have available now. I'm not asking for any extra money in the current budget, but I realize I will be asking for additional money to fund this position in the next budget. But there's no need for a salary increase at this time. I will be asking for funding to acquire a police vehicle. This is a time-sensitive thing on this as well. We're having a really hard time getting equipment right now, but I hope that I have at least brought some of those facts to you. If you think anything of Senator Tim Scott, he tweeted this week, okay? I didn't make this up. If we're going to talk about the duty to intervene, if we're going to talk about more funding for body-worn cameras, if we're going to talk about more training, more resources, and better officers, count me in. That's a senator. I'm talking about it, that we have got to provide better training and more resources for the police officers. I know that you had some municipal association training this past week. I hope you made it to the public safety piece of it. They talked about this, so y'all don't think it's just me. Is this Chief Hoffman wanting another police officer? Yes, but I hope you believe that there's a justification for it and that it's needed. The Surfside Beach Police Department saw a 21% increase in calls from service from 21 to 22, y'all. 1 year, 21% jump in calls for service. I know as I was giving the monthly reports to you guys, there were some months we were up 50%. The opening of the pier and full operation of the Pier Area Entertainment District, whatever that ultimately gets called, will create additional demands on police staffing and resources. Since 2012, the police department has forfeited 5 full-time positions. 3 of those were since I was chief, and 2 were before. When the police department made a split from public safety and went back to police and fire, the police department forfeited 2 full-time positions to the fire department to help them get their new organization up and running. I gave up 2 transport officers. And then this current position that I'm just asking you to refund, because it still sits on our organizational chart as a sergeant position at the sergeant pay grade, I'm asking you to refund it. I know it's a big ask, but I really need it. So that is my presentation. I know that you had my decision paper and there was a little more information in there, but I didn't want to put anybody to sleep. So I didn't want to go through that line by line. If you have any questions, you want to beat me up or anything like that, now's the time. I hope that, and I hope that the community also sees the need for this. We're expecting more and more and more and more and more and more from the police officers to serve this community. And we all want to have interactions with police officers who are efficient, professional, knowledgeable, and knowledgeable. So if I can answer any questions for you, I'm happy to do so. Thank you for allowing me to present.
My only question is, you said you also are going to need a vehicle,
Yes.
right? And is that the vehicle that's here?
No, sir.
So that's another vehicle.
This is another vehicle. Yes, sir.
So that's an additional 52,000.
Yeah, this will be an add to the fleet.
When you say vehicle, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, you say vehicle, does it have to be the $52,000 vehicle? I mean, a police interceptor, a whole 9 yards?
Michael, hold up a second. We need to get a motion on this first. So do I have somebody put in a motion on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Go
I'd
ahead.
like to make a motion to fund Kenny's new officer, or a training officer to, train his officers.
Second.
Okay. Now go ahead with what you were saying.
When you say we need a police officer,
Right.
can we look at, not that we want somebody's got wore out, but can it be a low mileage vehicle that we've checked out, that may be a $30,000 vehicle, that we can get 2 for the price of 1, considering we're in a 2-mile town?
Well, yes, but those really are like unicorns. What you just described is a low mileage police vehicle with 30,000 miles. It's really not something that we can find. Now, here's what we do. We can go to the GSA, that's the state.
GSA, yeah.
And go to the GSA and look and see. And we've done that many times. In fact, Diana and I have looked at those before too. They're beat up. There's a reason that the state turned those cars in. They're beat up. And we've looked at them, and I'd be happy to meet with you and look at them as well. It's just, the problem you run into is you can buy a used vehicle, you can put a bunch of equipment in it. You're gonna have a short lifespan, you're going to have to flip it right back over again, particularly if you get one that's got problems.
Does it have to be a police car?
Great question. I'm very glad you
I
asked.
mean,
Thank you
then
very
you come
much.
down big time in the price.
That's right. However, first of all, our insurance company requires your first responders to be in pursuit rated vehicles. There's that. Second, and try to get away from the thought of pursuit rated, meaning that we're gonna be doing all these crazy police pursuits.
Right.
We do have pursuits, and we do get into pursuits. We've had several this year already. But the important thing is this. When one of our citizens calls 911 because something really bad is happening,
Right.
we have to get there very fast sometimes, which means we have to drive fast, we have to drive hard, we have to brake hard. Pursuit rated vehicles are designed and equipped heavy duty to withstand the rigors of emergency first responders. Just like Chief Clemens would not want us to just buy a pickup truck and put a water tank in the back of it with a pump and a hose. You know, they are built to a certain. I'm sorry, Chief. But
Just want to say, don't drag me.
help me.
The reason I ask you,
That's a great question.
City of Columbia, Casey, West Columbia, Orangeburg, Calhoun County, all of them have different vehicles, but they're not the quote police package vehicles in the patrol. They got patrol car on the side, everything else.
Are you sure?
And they got some Priuses. I mean, I don't consider a Prius a police car, but I've seen them.
You're gonna run into problems with that.
I'm
and
not
I'll
looking
tell
for
you,
a Prius, but it's just.
Here's what's gonna happen is, you're gonna have officers, emergency first responders, working out of Ford Taurus. Nothing against the Taurus.
No,
A Kia.
Yeah. Well, they got.
Say easy.
They're not built to that standard. If the officer loses control, crashes, gets hurt, doesn't make it home to their family, the family's gonna be coming to look at you and ask why you put a police officer responding to emergencies in something designed to go get groceries. That's the liability that's gonna be created. The municipal association asks us a question each year. Are your first responders in pursuit rated vehicles? Yes or no? So that expectation exists. I'll be happy to look into it and contact Casey. We've
Not
got
just
some.
different ones, different, you ride around, you see them. That's what I'm asking that question. How
Right.
are they
Well,
able
like
to do it? And
How do you know they're not pursuit rated vehicles?
can he make a small car in a pursuit vehicle? I don't know. I mean, I'm just asking that question.
I can look into it and see. Like, for example, our detectives are in civilian cars. We buy them for the detectives because they're not responding to emergencies. But they could, so we're still in a gray area right there. However, we try to find those areas where we can, but I think if a police officer was standing in the back, well, there, but, sorry, I didn't mean to make it out. If we said to him, hey, you're gonna be responding to calls for service, but we're just gonna give you this, this Ford Taurus right here to answer calls. It sends a message that you're trying to save a buck at the risk of putting an officer's life in danger because these cars aren't designed for that type of response.
But if this is for a training coordinator, is that not more of an administrative position? Could it not be some kind of administrative vehicle?
It possibly could, but remember in the presentation, this is going to be a full function certified police officer who is at times going to be out in the field doing police work. So they're leading by example. So they're going to have to be capable of doing that.
Okay.
But if you tell me, chief, we're not giving you that amount of money, you're going to have to work it out. I'll do what I can.
Well, we want to work it out. We want to work it out so that it's feasible in a 2-mile town. I mean.
Mr. Mayor, 2 times on a Sunday.
You're right.
I understand where you're coming from.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Kenny,
Yes, sir.
I was at the public safety in Columbia, as you know. I heard all about the mandates coming down. And South Carolina's leading country in this 2-8 thing. And I attended the audit yesterday and we were told that. And so South Carolina is really taking a big stand on what's happening here. But the requirements are significant. I saw yesterday pages, a stack of papers this high that had to be going through with that was just the checklist.
Right.
That's not doing everything's got to be done. So this position is going to we have no choice. If we're going to have a police department, we're going to have to train them and do this.
Mr. Mayor. Kenny, you asking for some more patrol cars in our next budget. Next year, you'll be asking for some more cars, I'm sure, then. Is it feasible to look at keeping one of them cars that we have on staff to do that instead of us running out and buying another new vehicle to up your fleet of cars?
Yes, sir, it is.
I mean, that would be a little sensible looking to me to save a little money. And maybe, just maybe, if the next time we come around that you could come back and say, hey, I do need another new vehicle for this.
Okay.
But
Yes, sir.
I am really on the board of getting another officer. I really am for that. The car, I question that part of the car, but I want the officer. We need that. And I did go to some of the training in Columbia too for this.
Great.
And I noticed y'all have had a lot of extra put on you. And I do know that when we met before and you discussed the 50% increase, and so we do need that officer. My question is, do we really need that car right at this time? Or can we work around that car?
Well, if, Mr. Mayor, if the mayor and council will work with me to get the position approved, let me see what I can do, and I'll come back to you if I can't find a solution. As Councilwoman Keating says, I usually find a way.
We want to fund it, we just want to.
And the position is most important. The position is most important, yes.
Can't they drive that high water vehicle?
Yeah, sure can.
Got an LSV, what the heck?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know. I'm going to be without a microphone. Anyway, I would just like to say that we as a council need to stay in contact with our state representatives. Tim Scott's all for this. I'm all for this. But to force it on small towns and not mandate it, but not fund it is ridiculous. It's ridiculous because we can't just keep, they do this with the courts a lot too. The courts get mandated. They have to do certain things. Well, it takes more time. You have to add a person to help do it. And it's not, it's more of a, I don't know, more of a state issue, I think. The funding for your position, I think it's needed, but it's because the state is mandating that you do this. And if the state's mandating it, they should fund it in a small portion at least. But that's just my thoughts on it.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, and I'm not sure if I'm speaking out of turn here or not, but as the interim administrator, I feel I have a responsibility, and I think the next administrator should also feel this way, to at least give my opinion on this subject, whatever the subject may be. I can tell you that Chief Hoffman standing up there, there's been a lot of discussions before tonight about this position, about when should this position be presented to council, when should it be presented to the community, mid-year, new year, all of those things. I just think that it is worth you all knowing that. And remove the fire department uniform and put on interim administrator. How much conversation have we had about this, Chief? A lot. Because the timing is never right, but the timing is absolute for this position. And I know I'm not trying to sell now because listening to the conversation, the vehicle seems to be the biggest discussion point that Chief Hoffman can work out. But from the interim administrator position, I wholeheartedly support Chief Hoffman in this. We've had a lot of conversation with the finance director, Director King, and this is something that I hope as council goes to vote on this, that they consider how much consideration has been given in discussion before we came before you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to amend the motion. And that is to accept Chief Hoffman's recommendation for the additional training officer, and that we will defer the discussion on the additional vehicle until a later time.
Second.
Any further discussion on that?
Not a no.
Sherry, you want to do a roll call on this?
Councilman Stamey?
Yes.
Councilman Holder?
Yes.
Councilman Keating?
Yes.
Councilmember Crackwell?
Yes.
Councilmember Drake?
Yes.
Mayor Noy?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. This is a huge relief. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we'll go to the public comments, and these are any public comments. It has to do with town services or business conducted. All right, if there is no public comments, then we'll go into the town council comments. And we'll start out with Mr. Stamey.
Well, I'd like to start out by saying happy Valentine's, everybody, and glad to see you here. We got some things accomplished. And again, thanks to the officer for showing the courtesy of responding to somebody kindly. That's more than but beyond his duty of doing. I personally want to send a thank you out to him, and I want you to tell him, the fire department, great job, guys, good going. And it goes for all our employees. We have a good staff here. We really do. There's some positions that really needs to be worked on. Mr. Clemens is working his, you know what, off to work on this, and I do appreciate that, Rob. I really do. And I'm glad to see you out. And we have this workshop coming up the 21st. Get out, get here, and tell us what you want to see for the town. Tell us, let them know. Voice your opinion, because if you don't know, we can't do it. I mean, that's just it in a nutshell. We're going to make the decision, but it might not be what the town wants to hear. So get out, do your part of what runs this town. For that, good night.
Mr. Holder.
I'd like to say happy Valentine's also. And congratulations, Chief Almond, for getting the position. Now, I know it's going to be tough to get this higher. The work is just starting. So I'll be interested in hearing how it goes. And also, congratulations to the fire department and the new certification you got for advanced life saving. 2.5 years ago, I had a stroke, and I know the importance of having the right people. And I'm married to someone that's an expert in this subject, so I'm very lucky. But I know the importance of having advanced life saving, and to offer that to our residents is so important. Thank you, Chief Altman, and thank you, Larry, and also Captain. So I'm very happy that we're to that place now. And I've been talking about this since you were hired. I feel strongly about it. So thank you. And I also hope everybody come out next Tuesday for the meeting with the 10-year plan. It's so important. So I'll see you then, and y'all have a good day.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for coming out, and like others, wish everybody a very happy Valentine's Day, and especially taking time away from your loved ones if had you not brought them with you tonight. Tonight is also my 21st wedding anniversary, so I'll try to keep this short and sweet so I can get home. But I do want to thank all of our committees and our volunteers. They work hard. They're genuinely have their heart in the right place. They want to do the right things. You know, we had a business committee meeting today, and we've got a good group of business owners, you know, really focusing on bringing revitalization to our business community and changing our reputation of being difficult to deal with. So we'll be expecting more and more recommendations from the business committee going forward as to where some of the sticking points are. I know they are in the process of starting hopefully what will become quarterly business forums, just to get our business owners together with the business committee representatives to have an open dialogue. Here's where their challenges are. Here's what we did well. So, you know, I'm looking forward to really bringing that through fruition. Other than that, you know, we are short on staffing in just about every department, no matter how you look at it. You know, we've got generally a good team of employees working together, trying to get the job done as best we can. That doesn't mean it's perfect, but we are getting better. So that little light at the end of the tunnel is not really the locomotive coming at us. It really is the light at the end of the tunnel. So with that, again, happy Valentine's Day. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and calling in. I guess the theme of the night is Happy Valentine's Day, so I'll do that. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot to say. I'll let everybody get home and go do what they want to do. So see you next time.
Mr. Drake.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and tuning in. I'd like to thank the police department. Kenny's correct. We do have to have good people, we have to have very good training. I agree with that. And the law enforcement aspect is something that we need desperately. And they got to have good guys. And they're more advanced today than they've been 20 years ago. And the fire department the same way. And when you ask for certain equipment, I just want to make sure we're asking for the right piece because it's so expensive nowadays. And I agree with Mr. Crutchlow when he said about the senators. We need to give them a call, the House of Representatives. They're going to mandate this stuff, then we need to be looking at them to come up with some money because we do have a 2-mile town. That's what some people kind of forget. And so we just want to make sure we got the right equipment. It's very important, but you got to have it set within a cost limit. There's not an endless supply of money out there. And I'm glad the fire department stepped up. Thank you, Mr. Clemens. Thank you, Larry, for coming up with the advanced life support stuff because that's very much needed, very much needed. And again, thank you very much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, I think we've had a great discussion tonight, and it's all about providing services to our residents. And the fire department stepped up, the police department stepped up, all of our town employees have stepped up to make the life of the residents a little bit better. We have to, as a result of what we're doing, we have different rules that are coming out, and everybody, like you won't be able to park in the pier parking lot, because with your town stickers. But that is a separate entity on the pier that has to do with pier revenues. And council has made a decision not to charge for the first year at least. So, I mean, there's some give and take a little bit everywhere, and we're going to be working on the give and take for everything that we need to do. There's a lot of unknowns that are coming out. We don't know what our final totals are on the pier. We don't know what our budget is for next year, and that, we're working on all that. So it's really important now that we're doing our comprehensive plan because we're planning for the next 10 years. And it's hard to look into the future, but you can see that basically we do our comprehensive plan a couple of years after the census is done. So all that new data is there. I mean, as far as, the education, the population, everything else that we can use to go and move forward on what we're doing. So I would ask everybody to be involved in the comprehensive plan. Maybe you don't want to come and actually do any work on it, but your thoughts and are important. And it's important that everybody that lives in this town have some input into it because we're planning on what's going to happen here for the next 10 years. So with that, I hope to see as many people at the workshop as possible. And you all have a good evening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, Mr. Mayor, to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.